Okay. I think it's going. Did it say it's recording on your guys's? Sorry, I can cut this out too. If
Mine did.
Okay.
I think mine does, yeah.
Okay, it wasn't telling me it was going, and I was like, what?
You could edit this first little part. I think we'll probably start at the 23-minute mark, so that will put us needing to go how long? To 46 or 48?
I'll do it about 35 minutes. Right, 35 minutes. Yeah, well, tops 35 minutes, more like 30, so 30 to 35 minutes, I think. 2 to 3 minutes for each first part, and then
I thought it was
25 to 30.
25 minutes.
I think it is 25.
Well, it says 25 to 30 on the bulk of it, and then
Oh.
2 to 3 minutes on the first two. So I would just shoot for 30.
Okay,
Wow.
that's a long time. All right, we got this.
You better
Yeah,
ponder those
can do it.
questions, Maxwell. Just ponder them for a minute.
Yeah, I'll give them a lot of thought.
Think.
A lot of thought. Yeah.
Speak slowly.
Holy.
All right, are you all ready?
Ready.
Okay. Awesome. Hi, Russell. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's so nice to meet you. My name is Presley, and that's Kimberly. We get to work with you today, and we're so glad that you are here today. We just wanted to start off by just kind of learning more about you, getting to know you a bit more. So just kind of tell us a little bit about you, where you're from, just kind of a little bit of background, just so we can get to know who you are a little bit better.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I grew up here in Utah, 26 years old. I currently live with my parents, which I know half the people these days are. It's too expensive to do anything else. Yeah, I live in Sandy currently. Don't have a job at the moment. Grew up Catholic. Kind of practice it, not really. Practice it more so when my parents ask me to do so. I just enjoy, spending time with friends, playing sports and, video games and, nothing too interesting really. I don't do a whole lot these days though. Kind of the reason I'm here. Struggling with a few things and was hoping to have the opportunity to talk to somebody about it and also gather some resources that are available to me, specifically local, ones that are available to me and close by. That's I no siblings, just me and my parents right now.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, well, we're so glad that you're here, and we are so happy to be able to talk to you and get those resources for you. And we have Kimberly here. She's just going to talk to you a little bit about the confidentiality aspect of this and kind of more about HIPAA and different information about that.
Hi, Russell. I just wanted to echo what Presley had said. Welcome to our clinic. We're happy to have you. And I just want to put you at ease a little bit before we start asking you some questions that might make you feel a little bit more vulnerable. We do have some privacy policies here within our clinic, and I want to just let you know ahead of time. These policies have to do with HIPAA. I don't know if you're informed with HIPAA or you've ever been talked to about that before. Have you heard of HIPAA?
Not really. Well, I've heard of it, but I don't know a whole lot about it.
Okay. Well, HIPAA is a privacy law that basically states that anything that you say here between us in this session is protected. So I don't have the right to share it. And if anyone calls and asks about it, I don't have the right to give them that information either. So everything you're saying here, just want you to know that this is a safe place, and everything will be held confidentially here. Having said that, there are some occasions where I am Presley here would have a duty to report. Occasions that might come up that would fall under that would be if you were to say something to us that might make us feel as though you were a harm to yourself or that you had intentions to harm someone else. those things would definitely be what we would call duty to warn, and we would have an obligation at that point to report. Outside of that, you're completely fine to speak to us and tell us what's going on with you, and not worry in any way that we would share that information without your consent. Um, the only other issue that we might have is if you wanted your information shared. Let's say you had a primary care physician that was calling for information and you were fine with that. You wanted us to share. You would then just let us know and sign a release of information. That's also called an ROI. That's what that stands for. And we could keep that on file. And then if that person were to call or someone else in the community that you deemed to be able to access your information, we would do that based on your consent. So does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, awesome. Um, Again, we're happy to have you, and thanks for being willing to sit down with us and answer some of these questions so that we can get a better idea of where you're at and what resources we might be able to pair you with that would be helpful.
Yeah. And so just to jump on in with it, you mentioned that you just have some problems that you are dealing with right now and you don't have a job right now. Just kind of want to tell us about more of why you are here, what brought you here today, and just kind of more about your situation with being unemployed and just stuff like that.
Okay. Just a couple of months ago, I lost my job as a real estate agent. I was actually let go. The reason they gave me was for missing too many days of work. And again, I think it stems from larger issues than I originally realized. I really enjoyed the job. I love being a real estate agent. I found it difficult to find a job again or find another company that I could work with. And so that's obviously caused some stress in the form of, financial stress and living with my parents, not feeling very independent. Don't really want to depend on them for the rest of my life and for a place to live and for money and those kind of things. So yeah, that's been difficult. I don't really know where to turn or what resources are available for someone that's unemployed. I'm sure they're out there. I haven't had much motivation to go and find those on my own though. So that's one of the part of the reason I'm here talking to you today. Just try to find out a little bit more of that about that, what resources are available for that.
Can I ask you maybe what you felt like was a barrier for you with employment? Are you able to maybe identify why it was that you weren't consistently going to work? Was there something coming up for you that was a barrier for you to be successful in that?
My schedule was kind of off. I found it difficult to keep maintain a healthy sleep schedule. That definitely interferes when you're trying to get up to go to work or, meet with clients or keep a schedule that way. Struggled to just find the motivation. I find now I spend a lot of time, most days just in my room with the lights off, whether I'm sleeping or not. And that sleep pattern, I probably get anywhere between 9 to 12 hours of sleep per day and night, which sounds like a lot, but when half of it's during the day, it doesn't do me much good. And then, half of where it's broken into a few hours at a time. It's kind of tough to get into any kind of rhythm when I'm sleeping that way. I have an idea. I have some ideas of why that's been occurring. I'm happy to share those. Hopefully we can talk a little bit about those and figure out some of the underlying issues with that. But yeah, when you ask about my sleep pattern, that's what I have going on. And it just wholly interfered with what I was trying to do with work.
What do you think is a cause for your sleep disturbances?
Um, they, I was involved in a car accident, and was a passenger in the car. I had two good friends that were driver and then front passenger as well. And as I've given it time and thought, I think this is one of my biggest underlying issues was the car accident itself. I didn't think much of it originally, but I think it's probably causing some of the issues. Um, I survived. I was injured, but I just, some bruised ribs and some bruises. I actually broke some ribs and some bruises, but I was able to, recover very quickly. The front passenger, a friend of mine, he was paralyzed as a result of the car accident. And then the driver, who was also a close friend of mine, was killed during the car accident. So
I'm
it's
sorry, that's
obviously something to go
terrible.
through.
That is a lot for anybody.
Yeah.
How have you coped? What have you found successful?
Um, I guess I really haven't now that I think about it. The way I've reacted to it, kind of just pushed it deep down and not really addressed it. And I think that's now, you know, turned into a bunch of other issues. And, I wouldn't say it's really like I have PTSD because of it, but it's definitely affected my ability to be productive in different
Mhm.
aspects of my life, and work and sleep being, just a couple of those. After losing my job, I have a hard time eating or keeping a good diet schedule as well. And so don't eat very healthy, don't eat often. So I just don't think I'm coping the right way with the car accident.
I think that's very insightful that you've been able to kind of identify some of those things as being part of the bigger picture, right? And contributing to where we're at today. So that was sometimes it's hard for people to be able to see that all those things really play a part and all come together. Um, but yeah, that's really good insight.
Yeah. Have you had experienced any social or family support after this accident at all?
My parents have been really good. They've been supportive. I think they realized that what I went through was traumatic, but they now are I think they're kind of reaching their wits end as well. They have their own plans and their own things they want to do and accomplish. And I think me being there, I am, even if they won't admit it, I think I am a burden, or at least I feel like one. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. They just, yeah, I feel like they have to change their plans all the time because of me. They have to cater to my needs, and I think it's unfair. I feel like it's unfair, but they definitely are supportive. They love me, which I appreciate. Um, they don't agree with some of my choices or, some of my lifestyle choices, but overall, I feel like they love me unconditionally, which is beneficial. So I'm grateful for them. I don't have any friends really. My closest ones obviously were involved in the car accident. Um, I was dating a guy and it didn't work out. And so that's been kind of stressful as well. We were together for 2 years, lived together. And that's again, after that ended, that's why I kind of end up in my parents' home. So yeah, when you ask about social things, their family's good with my parents, but no real friends.
Okay. Okay, yeah, that's definitely that's hard when experiencing so much loss at one time. Do you feel any hope that you can receive more support and find more friends through this, or do you kind of feel hopeless about the future at all?
I think if I were able to get back to work, I mean, that's where a lot of friends came from too, is, my employment. And when I lost my job, I lost a lot of friends that way, or at least acquaintances that I interacted with almost every day. I feel hopeful about it, but not sure how to get to that point again.
Well,
Yeah.
hopefully we can help kind of help bridge that for you and connect you with some resources. Because yeah, pro-social activities and connecting back with the community are going to be really key to helping you move through this because you've been through a lot of trauma with grief and loss. And I think what you're expressing and the feelings that you're having are normal for what that is. Um, do you have any children?
No, no children, none of my own. No.
And are you do you have your own transportation?
Yeah, I have a car that I own. It's paid for. When I was working, I was making good money, and so money wasn't a stressor when I was working. And so I was able to, buy things like a car and those kind of things. When just real quick back onto the social aspect of things, I found dating incredibly difficult, especially these days. It seems to be all online and, not meeting anyone in person. So even with the transportation, I don't have much reason to go places. So
Right. Do you have any hobbies or interests that you feel like you used to enjoy that maybe you've stopped doing? But was there hobbies and interests that at one point you feel like you did enjoy that maybe you'd be interested in looking into again?
yeah, I enjoyed like general contracting work. Obviously kind of goes hand in hand with being a real estate agent, learning how to fix things and use tools and those kind of things. I do enjoy that. I haven't done much of it. It's oddball stuff around the house for my parents. I help them out when I can, but I used to kind of do those things on the side, is go and fix things for friends or family or other people that I know that needed some help that way. So I enjoy doing that as a hobby.
I think sometimes it's good to reflect back on things that you did enjoy like that, right? And we're looking for pro-social activities to kind of plug back into hobbies and interests and things that we are good at or enjoy are a good way to kind of get back out into the community too. Um, you had talked about the accident. Can I ask you if you've had any medical long-term side effects or what was your experience in the accident?
Um, Again, broken ribs and some bruising on parts of my body, just kind of what happens when you're involved in an accident like that. Um, Physically and medically, it's hard to hear sometimes, but do have a slight slur in my speech. Doctors are a little bit concerned over my overall, emotional functioning and my cognitive functioning, even though I don't notice too much of a difference. Maybe as a result, I don't notice it. My parents have mentioned it too. They've asked, several times if I need to go see a doctor again, and I haven't really gone and done so. I don't know.
Do you
Maybe I
have
should, with people noticing.
do you have a primary care physician that you've been seeing?
When I was through work, I had insurance, and so yeah, when I was working, I go and see the same one. I obviously haven't been for a little while now. Since the accident, I haven't been to that same primary care physician just because of money. Um, so yeah, I have one that I know and know well, and he has all my history, but I haven't approached my parents about paying for it. I don't really want to do that. I'm sure they'd be willing, but I haven't done that.
Well, we can definitely try to connect you with some resources. Presley and I have access to some community resources too. So hopefully we can pair you with some of that and maybe get that back up and running so we can see where you're at with that and follow up to make sure there's nothing more that we need to look into as far as your medical concerns go. Did you have any other questions for him, Presley?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of ask because you mentioned how with not being employed, you don't really have insurance right now, and you don't want to really ask your parents for money to go visit any doctors. So, do you have a big financial strain right now, especially after the accident and obviously having to go to the hospital to take care of those broken ribs and different things? How has your finances been since then? Is it a big stressor in your life, or do you have some kind of saved up that is helping you out right now?
I had a little bit saved up. Obviously, when I was so when I the time frame when I was in the accident, I was still working.
Mm.
Obviously, as a result of the accident, I started missing days and struggling. So I've pretty much, I mean, I have a little bit money left over. I try to pay my parents a little bit of rent, just a few $100s each month, but I'm burning through that quickly. I don't have much more left as far as paying for a car, and definitely not paying for my own place right now. It's just crazy right now how expensive everything is. So yeah, I have a little bit saved up, but nothing substantial.
Okay. Yeah, we definitely can help you with those resources to help you get hopefully find another job and get in a good place with those finances again.
Yeah. Are there any other stressors that you can think of or are aware of that you don't feel like we've touched on or covered? Is there anything that you feel like would maybe be what a primary concern that you would need resources with?
Um, one that I haven't, short of not sleeping well, waking up often, and not eating well. One that I haven't really ever told anyone about was when I was 6 or 7, I had a 16-year-old cousin who touched me inappropriately. And I didn't, obviously, I was pretty young, a lot older now, 20 years later, it's been quite some time. I try not to think about it often, but the fact that I do think about it and that it comes up, every once in a while makes me think it's probably a bigger issue than I will let it be. It's one of those things where I think if I just ignore it long enough, it may go away.
Mhm.
I think when I was younger, I don't remember who I told, maybe parents or maybe aunt and uncle. No one believed me, saying, he wouldn't do that. So that's another concern for sure. Another thing that causes me some stress and anxiety. To what extent, I don't know. And that may even need to be obviously covered in more detail on a later appointment, but I think it's important, to at least bring it up in an initial
Right.
contact with you so you guys are aware of it.
Well,
Yeah.
I just want to applaud you for your bravery and thank you for trusting us with that information. That's definitely a vulnerable thing to discuss, but I would agree with you. Have you ever had any mental health evaluations or any counseling or anything over the years where you've discussed that professionally or any of the grief and trauma that we're currently kind of talking about right now? Have you had any mental health help over the years?
Yeah, I think it was about 12 years ago. I went and saw a psychiatrist. Yeah, so I was a teenager. Yeah, about 12 years ago, I was seen for social anxiety. Um, I was just struggling in school as far as, interacting with others and that kind of thing. And so, yeah, about 12 years ago, I did see a psychiatrist, just about some social anxieties.
Okay.
Okay.
How long did you see this psychiatrist for? Do you remember?
Not very long. I think off and on again for a year or so.
Okay.
I think it went okay. I didn't like the psychiatrist much, which probably was
Mhm.
one of the problems. It was kind. I found it boring. Obviously, as a 14-year-old, you don't want to sit there and talk about your problems and even admit that you have problems, right? So, yeah,
Mhm.
about a year or so, just for social anxiety stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you feel like that you mentioned that it was just kind of boring to you. Do you feel like it was of help to you, or did you just kind of go with the motions through it, or what was your experience with it more?
I think it helped me a little bit. I think it helped me in the fact that I learned how to talk to somebody about having
Mhm.
problems as much as I didn't want to. I don't know if that makes sense or not. Like realizing that there are people out there that are willing to help, was a big thing for me. Just having someone to listen was good too, so I could just say how I was feeling, my problems, and those kind of things. So I probably should have continued with it. I or at least in early adulthood sought out a little bit more help. To get to this point where I have all these issues and then address it. I kind of regret doing that a little bit. I shouldn't say regret because, I don't, it is what it is, but definitely seeking help sooner would have been beneficial for me. Not let it get to this point, to the
Hey,
point where I'm
anytime's
doing
a good
this.
time. I applaud the present. So I think it's
Yeah.
awesome that you're here, and moving forward is all we can do, right? And so,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah. Um, I think we have covered a lot of ground as far as collecting information. Presley, do you feel like we have we've covered all of our questions for Russell, or is there anything else that you feel like?
I think we've got a lot of information, and we really appreciate you being so open and willing to share with us. Um, I maybe have one more question for you. Do you have any do you use any substances, the drugs, or alcohol, or anything like that right now?
No, and I never really have.
Okay.
I think I tried alcohol once when I was in in high school and found
Mhm.
it really, really gross. I don't, nothing really.
Okay. Awesome. I think we have asked you questions we have and have gotten a lot of information to hopefully get some good resources for you.
Okay. I did make one mistake though, and what I was telling you guys, now that I think about it, as far as the incident with my cousin, I didn't tell anybody about it. I didn't tell my aunt or uncle, and I didn't tell my parents. Never reported it to any kind of authorities either. So I said that I told aunt and uncle, and I just remembered that I didn't tell anybody. So I was wrong
Well,
initially on that.
you're good. Thanks for clarifying for us.
Mhm.
Um, just want to thank you again for being willing to be vulnerable. I know a lot of that was very personal, and so thank you for being willing to talk about it with us. We're just going to chat for 1 second here and kind of brainstorm collectively for some resources for you, and then we're gonna share those with you. Are you open to that feedback?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Presley and I are mind melting now for. Okay. All right. So, um, community resources. I don't know if you know much about community resources, so I apologize if I'm talking in a way that you're like, oh, I already know that. Stop me if you've heard of it before, but we just have a couple things that after reviewing your responses that we felt like would be good resources to help you where you're currently at. So we've kind of identified 3 areas that would be what seemed to be your greatest need. Um, and again, correct me if we're way off base or if you're like, no, that's not an issue. The first one that we have down it would just be your employment, being self-sufficient and being back in the workforce. I think you expressed that was something that you desired as well. Just being self-sufficient in general is a goal that we have here in social work to help people get from where they are to where we'd like them to be and where would be best for you. A local resource for you with that would be the Department of Workforce Services. Have you heard of them before?
Heard of, but I've never reached out or anything.
Okay. It's really simple. They have a website, and we'll give that to you so you can take that with you and look it up. If you go into any of their facilities, when you go online, it's jobs.utah.gov, and you can access all of their locations. When you go into their facilities, they have a bunch of computers and a bunch of equipment, as well as employees who are there to do nothing but help with temporary assistance. Assistance would be things like food, financial, resume building, job seeking, things like that. So a lot of those temporal needs, you can get a lot of those met just with that one resource, just that Department of Workforce Services. You can sign up for Medicaid, you can sign up for STAMP or food stamps, EBT card. And those are temporary resources to help kind of get your basic needs met. So you should have your food, you should have some financial assistance and some medical assistance, because I think it's important that we do that follow up, right, with your PCP and see where we're at with that post accident stuff. So that would be my first recommendation, is to get you lined up with the workforce services and have you go in and start the application process. You can also go online and start your application process just from home. A lot of that is really easy, and it'll give you links to let you know if you've been approved or what more information they need. But we're also here, Presley and I would love to help you with that. If you wanted to work on that here in our clinic, we'd be happy to pull that up and to kind of work through that with you as well and see what we can help you qualify for. How does that resource sound?
That sounds good. Sounds like they have a lot of things that would probably apply to what I'm going through now.
Yep, I would definitely agree. The second resource, this one would be what I would consider something that's helpful for mental and emotional well-being. I know we had talked about that you've had some grief and some loss and some social anxiety over time, both as a youth and then currently. So Presley and I both feel like mental health and emotional well-being are going to be one of your greatest needs for resource as well. You had mentioned that you were homosexual and that you were in a relationship previously, but were experiencing some loss from that and a little bit of maybe social disconnection and isolation currently. So one resource that I think would be great would be the Utah Pride Center. Have you ever heard of them before?
Not the center itself, but
Okay, they have a website. It's called utahpridecenter.org, and you can log on, and it's very user friendly. They've got a lot of links on there, but they do offer quite a bit of mental health services. They address specifically grief and loss and social anxiety. I would also encourage you to utilize that resource if you're willing, maybe to explore some of your childhood experiences, like you had brought up, that exposure that you had, that sexual trauma when you were a child. I think that it would definitely be advantageous to explore that with a mental health professional. And they are absolutely a resource for that. I think that you're right, finding someone that would be a good fit for you, where you had referenced before being younger and maybe not feeling like that was a good fit personality wise. Take the time when you're doing those interviews to really see if the person is a good fit for you, if you feel comfortable and connected. But they also, that facility has quite a bit of connections for that. They also do peer-to-peer support. I don't know if you're aware of what that would entail. Have you ever heard of peer-to-peer support before?
I've heard of it. I think my work had something similar to where you could just talk to someone in private and
Right.
share some things. Yeah.
So it's not necessarily a licensed mental health or clinical help provider, but they offer peer-to-peer support. So if you're just needing companionship or connection, or you just need to vent, or maybe you're having an off day, right? Like they have peers that's their specific job, is to just kind of be available and help talk through some of those things where you are processing through grief and loss and some other heavy things. I think peer-to-peer support would be a huge resource for you during this time. And then they also have programs and activities. We had kind of talked about the isolation that you're experiencing and being a little more withdrawn since the breakup. I think it would be healthy to kind of re-engage back in the community with some programs and activities to help kind of counteract that. And they do have a calendar full. So I do think that's also kind of a one-stop shop for you as far as like mental and emotional and social. They have quite a bit to offer with that one resource as well. And then lastly, we have listed the resource for childhood and sexual trauma. This one is called service. Well, I'm sorry, I don't know why I'm blanking on this. Victim advocacy is what it is. Have you heard of victims advocacy before?
No, not really.
Okay. So you live in Sandy, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in Sandy, they have a website actually specifically for Sandy City, sandy.utah.gov, and it's victims assistance. And what this is it's a confidentiality, or it's a confidential program for people who've been the victims of sexual trauma or abuse. They have hotlines that you can call and talk to. They have information for referral services. They also do counseling. They also have access to food banks, legal assistance, and other resources through the community. But I do feel like, and Presley and I had talked about this as well, that if you're doing your mental health counseling and this comes up for you, and this ends up being something that you're identifying as being like, hey, this might actually be more than I initially wanted to really explore, but maybe I'm willing now to address some of this and look into that. There's support in the community, absolutely. And that's exactly what this is, this victims advocacy program. So again, that website is sandy.utah.gov, victims assistance. And I put a fourth one on here, but this one, I don't have a link for you. It's just a recommendation that you follow up with your primary care physician just regarding those long-term side effects that we had talked about from the accident. I know that's a little bit down the line once we look into getting you some insurance benefits back up and running and employment and things like that. But I definitely wanted to list that on something that we feel like would be a top need or a resource for you at this time. Did you have any questions for us about some of those resources?
No, will you just text them to me?
Oh,
So I have all of them?
absolutely. We
Okay.
will print these out for you. We will email them to you. And like I
Great.
said, our office is open to you. As your social workers, we are more than happy to help mentor you through that process. Log on, fill things out. If you ever feel overwhelmed or you're not sure how to do that, that's what we're here for. So lean on us for that. But there's definitely some good resources in the community to help get you started.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll definitely hand those off to you, and we're so happy that we got to talk with you today, Russell, and just kind of get to know you more and get these resources for you to kind of help you get back on your feet again.
I appreciate it. Thanks for taking time.
Of course. Thank you, Russell.
Thank you.